You want a scene, yeah, you want a scene like when the xenomorph took out Harry Dean. You want a scene, yeah, you want a scene like when Bobby D says you're talking to me. You can go to the diner for a meal with Meg. You can yell at your class, stab yourself in the leg. You can upgrade your boat for when sharks attack. You can be like Arnold, tell him I'll be back. You want a scene, yeah, you want a scene like when the xenomorph took out Harry Dean. You want a scene, yeah, you want a scene like when Bobby D says you're talking to me. Jeff and Jon talk scenes and quotes. Jeff improvises while Jon takes notes. From Mozambique to Montreal, you can join in the chat on Scene It All. You want a scene, yeah, you want a scene like when the xenomorph took out Harry Dean. You want a scene, yeah, you want a scene like when Bobby D says you're talking to me. Seen It All with Jeff and Jon.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Seen It All with Jeff and Jon, the podcast where we break down our favorite scenes from our favorite movies. I am Jeff Glover.
And I'm Jon Zabriskie.
And today we are super excited to talk about a scene from, oh boy, this is a big one, Terminator 2.
You talk about big scenes. We're also talking about big movies, big directors, big actors, big action. Just like put the word big in front of everything and you have accurately described the scene in this movie.
We really kind of set the bar high here, starting with this one, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
This is both one of my favorite movies. I'm thinking it's probably one of your favorite movies, Jon. Maybe favorite action movies. Definitely one of my favorite Arnold movies. So today we're going to be talking about and breaking down the LA River chase scene, the first major chase scene in the film. And we'll get to that. We'll get to all of that in a moment. But we should probably start off, since this is the first episode of our new podcast project, kind of talk to the people about what we're doing here. Why have we come back again?
Sorry.
It'll never stop.
Yeah, it'll never stop. It'll just be immortal. It'll live on in our hearts and in our voices anytime something ends in act. Yeah. But yeah, this is our second project together. Our first project together was the Predator Minute podcast, where we analyzed the 1987 action sci-fi classic Predator 1 minute at a time over a course of 104 episodes, along with a Predator 2 commentary. Yeah. So that's its own podcast feed. It will live on evergreen, hopefully, as long as SoundCloud is around. You can find that. I do believe I put us as the artists, Jon and Jeff, under that because there is another Predator Minute podcast. But yeah, now we're going to be talking something completely different, something I'm really excited about, which was more of your idea, though, because for the longest time, I've always wanted just to kind of talk about a different movie every week. But you're the one who proposed this format. Why, Jeff? Why?
Well, I thought it was something unique. And I also just thought that there really weren't enough podcasts where two heterosexual white guys talked about movies. So here we are.
Talk about movies from our youth. Exactly.
But in all seriousness, I thought this would be a really fun way to take on a movie per episode. There's so many podcasts out there that just discuss a movie every episode. And, that's great. And there's a lot of great podcasts that do that. But this felt like a natural transition from our minute-by-minute roots to do a kind of a scene breakdown show where we just pick a scene, a favorite scene, or a standout scene from one of the movies we'd like to talk about. It'll give us a chance to watch a different movie every episode, kind of explores different genres that we enjoy. And one of the fun things we're going to do is we're going to alternate choosing, and we're not going to tell each other before it's announced on the show, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And on that note, when we have guests, there will be the occasional guest on the show from either our previous podcast, Predator Minute podcast, or from outside of the Predator Minute podcast guesting. And I assume that on occasion we'll make sure that they have the choice. They can kind of surprise us through email or whatnot, and then it'll give us a good reason to watch the movie and really break down a scene from someone else's perspective.
Absolutely. So I am really excited about this, and I'm sure the show will kind of change and evolve over time, but we're going to give it a go, see how it works. And we're starting off with Terminator 2. This felt like a nice transition from Predator Minute. It's an action movie. It's an Arnold movie. It's from roughly the same time period. And I know it's a movie we both love, so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and you chose, I guess, do you want to talk about personal history with Terminator?
Man, it's hard to explain how much this movie meant to me. It still means to me, but meant to me especially when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. So this movie came out in summer of 1991, which would have put me at 11 years old. And we had some family friends, and their dad, well, it was a sort of a family that was friends with our family, and their family had two sons. One of them was close to my age, and their dad took his two sons plus me to go see Terminator 2 in the theater in the summer of 1991. It was the first R-rated movie I ever saw in a theater. And part of my love for this movie is just being at that impressionable age, and also happening to see one of the greatest action movies ever created as my first R-rated film to see in the theater. And it blew me away. It's a movie that I've revisited countless number of times, and it'll just live in history as one of my favorites. And this particular scene, we'll talk about why I chose this scene a little bit later, but I think this particular scene really is one of the scenes that stands out in my mind whenever I think about this movie.
Sure. Yeah. I'm really excited to hear why you chose that scene. Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah. How about yourself? Was this something you watched as a kid or saw when it first came out?
Well, I think you and I are pretty close to the same age. Yeah. I was also 11 when this came out. This wasn't my first R-rated movie in the theaters. It was actually my second one. My first one was the March 1991 release of The Hard Way with Michael J. Fox and James Woods.
The Hard Way.
And the underrated Stephen Lang, I might add, who...
all right, you win. Better movie.
Yeah. Better movie. No, I'm going to go ahead and give it to this one. I remember this one being such a cultural event.
Right.
Even before it came out, while watching, then after watching, this would put us, what we said, 11 years old. So we're in sixth grade, I think?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. 7. Oh, no, were we fifth grade?
Well, it was... Yeah.
I think we're in fifth grade at the time.
It's the summer between fifth and sixth grade.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Yeah. So I remember coming to school in the fall and wanting to talk to my friends about this movie. And of course all my friends had seen it, which when I look back at the gross and see that this is the highest grossing R-rated film for what I think 12 or 13 years, which is a huge brag for this movie. That tells you that everybody was seeing this, that it was just all throughout the zeitgeist, whether you had seen it in a theater or on video or not, or maybe you just watched the Guns N' Roses video. But this is definitely one that permeated. I had that Guns N' Roses You Will Be Mine song recorded off the radio on a cassette tape. Listen to that on the way to the beach with the family.
Do you remember the trailers for this movie and how hype you got when you saw them? They had that original teaser trailer. I don't know if you remember, but it was just a slow shot of a machine that was slowly opening up. And then it opened up like a sandwich kind of. And then as it opened up, Arnold was standing inside of it as a newly formed Predator. And his eyes just popped and glowed. And
did you say Predator?
Did I say Predator? I did.
Oh man, this is never going to leave our minds.
That's funny. A newly formed Terminator.
That's the one.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's funny. And his eyes just pop and start glowing. I think the tagline was something like "I'm coming back" or something like that.
I'll be back.
And then they just slammed T2 onto the screen. And that was the teaser, and everyone lost their fucking minds,
Yeah.
Oh my God. I remember
Talk about a teaser and a campaign before the movie comes out, because if I remember correctly, I know the teaser trailer doesn't give you anything, and I watched this yesterday, and the trivia says that Stan Winston, like our favorite FX guy, directed that trailer.
Oh, okay.
And with Cameron's permission. So it was clearly to hype everybody up, but not give anything away. I don't remember any of the trailers, like the extended trailers, though, before it came out, like theatrical trailers. Did that say anything about like the intent of Arnold in the movie? I don't remember them either.
I know that when I have a pretty distinct memory of almost going into this blind. I had probably seen a trailer, but all of the big scenes in this movie blew me away in such a way that makes me think that I had no idea what I was about to see,
Same make.
These were taken at the West Highland Police Station, 1984. You were there.
Same model.
These were taken today.
You have to let me see my son. He's in great danger.
New mission. Once, he was programmed to destroy the future.
You don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things.
Now, his mission...
Get down.
...is to protect it.
Mom! Come with me if you want to live.
You're really real.
His loyalty is to a child.
Who sent you?
You did. 35 years from now.
And his enemy...
He's a Terminator like you, right?
Not like me.
...is the deadliest machine ever built.
Can it be destroyed?
Unknown.
This time, there are two. Terminator 2.
You just can't go around killing people.
Why?
If you thought you had seen it all, look again.
Stay down!
Go! Now!
We gotta stick together!
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. This time, he's back. For good.
Trust me.
And it's kind of crazy. Like, Terminator 1, was a hit and was a little bit of a cultural phenomenon on its own, but it was also kind of this low-budget sci-fi horror movie that gained traction through VHS rentals, and kind of, and kind of became popular in that way and sort of built up a fan base. So for this to be announced and for you to realize the magnitude of this film, like we'll talk about it, but the budget for this film was the biggest budget ever for any movie that had ever existed up to this point. Is kind of crazy that they were like, okay, here, take $100 million and go make a sequel to this kind of a cult sci-fi horror movie. But I mean, everyone was jazzed for it. I mean, you see Arnold up on the screen, Schwarzenegger across the poster, like, we were ready to go.
Right. This is, I think a lot of people would argue this is Arnold at the height of his power. Cameron, definitely. Well, I think a lot of people would say like this is the what would you even call that? Like kind of the end of. Well, no, he was I would say in the midst of his action blockbuster phase, and then he goes, I think, True Lies, and then he goes to Titanic, and quite a bit later, Avatar. Where he is just bending the special effects game once again. But using a different kind of technology. Yeah,
that's another conversation. Like Cameron went on this crazy run through the 90s where every movie he made was the most expensive movie ever made, right? He just built his legacy that way. But, you make a movie like this with the success it had, and it's quite literally a blank check to do whatever you want from then on, so... All right. Well, should we get into it? So we're talking about the LA River chase scene. Mm-hmm. And if you are watching this, we're going to kind of break this scene up. I'll say this. Our starting point is when John Connor comes out of the hallway behind the Galleria after the two Terminators have met for the first time and jumps on his little motorbike there. And then the scene will end, of course, when after the T-1000 slowly walks out of the burning truck. So that's going to be it's about a 5.5 minute scene, I think,
yes,
that we're going to cover. Yeah.
I would say to give this movie a quick overall recap, and then I'll do like a quick recap up to this scene, and then we can do after this scene, we can explain kind of quickly the rest of the movie, like where it goes from here. But just overall, this is from IMDb, the movie recap. It says, a cyborg identical to the one who failed to kill Sarah Connor must now protect her 10-year-old son, John Connor, both of our Zencastr names, thank you, from a more advanced and powerful cyborg. Nice taut summary right there.
Yeah.
Just telling us everything you need to know about the movie. And yeah, I'll talk more about that as a kind of explanation for this scene even. But up to the scene, so do you remember what has happened up to the scene in the movie?
Well, this is actually one of the reasons why I chose this scene is I love the first half hour of this movie. I think that James Cameron does an incredible job of very deliberately and methodically introducing us to all the different characters that are at play. You know, in the beginning of the film, we see the T-800, the T-800 show up. He goes to the biker bar, kicks some ass, gets his leather jacket, does all that good stuff, right? We're also introduced to the T-1000, and so we see him for the first time. We're also introduced to Sarah Connor in the insane asylum with a couple really great. I could talk about all that insane asylum stuff for a long time, but couple great scenes there. So we see her and the reveal that she's, looks quite a bit different from the first movie. We also get introduced to Miles Dyson, the scientist that's working for Skynet, that at the same time it's revealed that they're holding on to the original Predator arm from the first movie, which is kind of cool, sort of closes that time loop, right? And so we get all and then of course we're introduced to John Connor, right? The bratty, angsty kid living with his foster parents. And this is all done, and we just get pieces of all these different characters. And I love the way that that's set up, because immediately you know who's in play, who our characters are, what they're all doing. And then you also know that at some point in the film, all these people are going to come meet each other. And one of the reasons why I love this chase scene so much is it's the first time the two Terminators, I almost said Predator again. It's the first time the two Terminators meet up, and they have the brawl in the hallway, behind the Galleria arcade. And so we get to see the strength and sort of what the T-1000 can do. And it's also the moment that John Connor sees both of them. And so this really kind of kickstarts the middle half of the movie when all the characters begin to meet each other. And it does it in a kick-ass way with this amazing chase scene, which we'll talk about. But anyhow, that's how I kind of describe the first half hour of the movie leading up to this. Yeah,
that's a really good recap. And one of my first notes is that this scene works as a microcosm of the movie. It is showing Arnold as the T-800 protecting John from the T-1000, like in a vicious, ruthless, endless hunt. Where they just leave a wake of destruction behind. It's kind of a smaller version of the entire movie, which is very destructive and very much just about the T-1000 chasing. You could say this whole movie is one big chase, and this is the first of quite a few chases.
Have you ever noticed how, and this was spoiled through the marketing of the film. By the time the film came out, we knew that Arnold was going to be the good guy, because it was all over the press and like it was sort of announced. But have you noticed that in this movie, you don't actually know if you were to watch it blind, you wouldn't really know which Terminator is the good one and the bad one.
You almost said Predator.
I almost said Predator. They sound too much alike. But you really don't. Like you meet the T-800, you meet Arnold, and he's kicking ass and stealing clothes, just like he did in the first film. You meet the T-1000, and they kind of do the little a little MacGuffin there where he puts on cop clothes to make you feel like he might be a good guy because he's dressed as a cop. And it's never explicitly stated which one is the good one, which one is the bad one. All you know is that they're both searching for John Connor. And when I was listening to I listened to the director's commentary for this, and and James Cameron pretty much admits this in the commentary. He says that was the original intent of the first part of the movie, was to have this showdown in the hallway outside the Galleria. And you don't know which Predator. Oh my God, I did it again. You don't know which Terminator is the good one or the bad one until Arnold grabs John Connor and protects him and takes all the shots in the back. Right. Mm-hmm. And I always just think about like what a cool reveal that would have been if I hadn't known already that Arnold was the good one, you know? So I think that's a really cool thing. I think it's something that people don't necessarily realize because they've seen this movie so many times and they know who's the good and the bad. But I think that's a really great construct to kind of build tension in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, it's really similar to something we talked about way back when in Predator. When it first starts, they show the alien ship kind of being deposited on Earth for just a brief 15 seconds or so. And if you cut that out and you go into the movie blind, you have no idea there's some kind of alien presence until I think about 20 minutes in. I think it's like 17 when they find the skinned Green Berets, but it's another few minutes, I think, before they find, like, before we see the Predator vision. Even then, I think it's a full half hour in the movie, very similar to this movie, where you see like the Predator's hand, and like that's a huge reveal, especially if you're, really only if you're going in blind. But similarly, I did watch this over the course of a couple days last week just to prep. And it's just so engaging and heart pounding still as a movie. And like you said, that first half hour is a mystery if you don't really know what's going on. So watching it from those eyes was really fun. Just thinking like, oh, like if you're watching this, you don't know Arnold's not bad. And like Linda Hamilton clearly doesn't know that Arnold's not bad. And John Connor doesn't know that. Right.
I mean, we as the audience kind of take on that role as one of the characters, not knowing. It's really, I really love the way that this whole story unfolds. And the fact that it takes, half an hour or so to get to the first real action sequence, and at the same time you're just on the edge of your seat with just all the character development, I think is a testament to how well this movie is put together. All right, well, should we get into it here? Do you want to start talking LA River chase scene?
Let's do it. Did you want to do it part by part, kind of like the good old days?
Yeah, let's do it. If sounds good to you, I'll just you've got some great synopsis here, unless you want to read them or I can read it.
Oh, no, go for it.
All right, here we go. We are going to get into the LA River chase scene, and we're going to break this down into 3 parts, as we do. And so we'll start with part 1 of the scene. This is when John Connor starts his dirt bike in the Galleria Mall parking garage as the T-1000 enters the garage. John yells, "Come on!" as he zips out of the garage, and the T-1000 is in close pursuit on foot. Oh man, we got to talk about the T-1000 running face. It's pretty epic. John ramps up and out of the garage, cutting off a semi-tow truck, and the T-1000 chucks the truck driver out of the door. John keeps riding away as we then see the T-800, Arnold, leave the garage in pursuit on his Harley-Davidson motorcycle. I love this, John, because right away we get to see all 3 vehicles that are going to be involved in this chase, and it gives me a boner every single time.
Yeah, if you look at this, I don't know, this is my like symbolism hat going on. Like there's something very representative about the vehicles.
I agree, 100%.
Controlling. Like clearly, John is just still kind of this punk kid. What is a punk kid going to be riding around? Like some ratty dirt bike, some tuned up dirt bike.
Yep.
The T1000 is in basically like a moving wall, just
destroying everything in his path.
Yeah, it's a tow truck, which I believe the other name is a wrecker. That's
nice.
Kind of like slang. So clearly, that's what he's doing. He's putting a lot of cars, and even old rusted out cars, and even worse shape. Maybe some shopping carts, and then you have Arnold, of course, like the heavier, clearly of the Terminators, on like the classic motorcycle, the classic Choppa.
Yeah, because he's the classic Terminator, right? So he gets the classic machine. Yeah, and I love the juxtaposition of these different vehicles. And I remember being 11 years old and just sitting up in my chair, being like, "Oh shit, here we go, let's go!" And you've got the John on the bike, so he's quick and can zip around things, and you've got the T1000 who can clearly just bust through anything, and then Arnold on that bike with the deep classic Harley sound revving around the corners. Oh man, such a great start to a chase.
Do you think Spielberg? Do you think Cameron took inspiration from Spielberg in the movie Duel? I don't know if you have seen that movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah,
it's if I remember correctly, isn't it like basically a semi truck chasing down a guy in a hot rod? Do I have that right?
I think he's in just a regular car.
Okay,
like a sedan or something, if I remember right. But wait, I see the parallel.
No. It says that the unseen driver of a rusted Peterbilt 281, and if you look at that is kind of like your it's a little bit older, but it's like your kind of classic. I'll put it in the chat here. Your classic truck, like your classic semi truck, like maybe an older version, but at the same time.
Oh, you mean the big truck? Yeah.
Yeah, the big truck in Duel, the one that's doing the chasing.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the other guy, the suit that's being chased.
Oh,
got it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, the big imposing, like the flat front of the truck, just like you said, like just a wall of destruction.
It also reminds me of like, God, what was the Stephen King movie?
Oh, Maximum Overdrive?
Maximum Overdrive, where like, the semi trucks are the bad guys again.
Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of continuing that imagery to me, especially like in this river channel. The river channel really presents like a desolate place, like just like a dead area that nobody's in. There's rusted out cars, old shopping carts. It's like they're almost in this kind of mini apocalyptic wasteland here in the channel, and here's like just death looming, and that's all that's behind John for now in this first part.
Yeah, you're right. It does. It feels like some sort of Mad Max scene or something. Almost gives it like Western vibes if there was a big chase scene through a Western, where it's just sort of there's nobody else except for them, and there's just a bunch of debris in the way. Yeah, that's awesome. I hadn't thought about that before. So a couple little kind of behind the scenes notes here, but I think this stuff's really interesting. So Edward Furlong, of course, plays John Connor, and for many of the scenes they shot him riding the bike. There are some scenes where he's actually controlling the bike. A lot of the scenes have him on a rig where he's kind of attached to another larger vehicle for safety. Right. But then for a lot of the cutaway scenes where you can actually see him riding on the bike and making turns and stuff, they had to use a stunt double, of course. But the stunt double is not the size of John Connor, who's like 10 years old. So what they did is they used the smallest stunt double they could find, but then used a larger sized bike to make the proportions look right. I thought that was a pretty ingenious filmmaking there. Good job, James Cameron.
You can totally tell though when his stunt double's on screen. He's wearing like an Edward Furlong wig.
Yeah,
which I think that must be a popular item back in the early 90s. Right. I want to be like John Connor.
It is. When you see some of those scenes, if you look really carefully or you slow it down, you're like, oh, that is a small man wearing a wig.
Small man riding a bigger dirt bike wearing a wig.
Yeah.
That is good stuff. Oh, and Robert Patrick here in the beginning doing, I believe, the first of his classic T-1000 runs where he's looking straight ahead. He's not breathing out his mouth. Just a machine, just so efficient, of course, in all his actions, and running is no different. Just slicing through the air, just terrifyingly fast. Right after John Connor. Yeah,
I love that reveal as well, because up until this point, you've seen the T-1000. You saw him get in a fight with Arnold, and you see how his sort of metal body works. But still, everything he's done up to this point has sort of been slow and deliberate and methodical. Mm-hmm. And I love Robert Patrick's performance here, how he kind of looks with his eyes before he turns his head, Yes. It's really, really awesome choice that he made, like bringing that character alive. But then when he just busts into that run, you're like, oh God, he can move fast. And that was another part of the director's commentary. Cameron said that the first time they did that take, Robert Patrick was actually really fast. And he caught the bike on the first take, and they were like, "We can't use that take. You can't catch him." So they had to force him to try to slow himself down a little bit and also speed up the bike so that he wouldn't actually catch the bike coming out of the gate there.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious! Awesome. Yeah, he's too fast. He's a Terminator.
I do love that Terminator run, though. You're right, mouth closed. And he's got the straight fingers up and down with the arms. Oh, it's so great.
Yeah, in my notes I have that, and this is just all IMDb, so take it for what it's worth, but other T-1000 cast ideas were Billy Idol, apparently James Cameron's first choice. But
that's crazy to me.
Had a broken leg at the time, I guess, from a motorcycle accident, funny enough. Michael Biehn, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Man, why am I blanking on his name? What is his name in the first movie?
Oh, Kyle Reese.
Yeah, Kyle Reese. Yeah. Blackie Lawless, who's the lead singer of Wasp. I don't know what that is, but
what's the deal with the musicians playing the T-1000?
I don't know. I think James Cameron has a thing for hard rock,
Yeah. I'm glad that they made the choice they did. I think if Billy Idol was to be playing the role, all I would ever see is Billy Idol.
Yeah.
And if Michael Biehn's playing the role, I think that's a little confusing between the first and the second movie. Mm-hmm. Now the good guy and the bad guy are completely flipped, which is a little strange. So I like Robert Patrick because he's not super well known, but like a well known character actor, and he totally inhabited that role. It's just awesome.
Yeah, James Cameron liked him in Die Hard 2 from 1990.
Oh, right. Nice, yeah.
I remember him being one of the baddies, one of the henchmen, especially like in the early airport shootout scene where they pretend to be painters, and it's like, you're a duck, and they just start taking out the SWAT team.
That's right. So then the other vehicle we get to see is Arnold T-800 on the Harley. Mm-hmm. Now, do we have specifications on what type of Harley he was riding here?
Yes, we do. Yes, actually, yeah. Another thing I copy pasted, but where is it? All right, this motorcycle is a Harley Davidson Softail Fat Boy. And it goes on to say, although never confirmed by HD, many believe that HD came up with the Fat Boy model name as a tasteless joke made by combining the nicknames of the two atomic bombs dropped over Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Jesus.
Little Boy and Fat Man. Yeah. It says the Fat Boy bike was supposed to represent the reemergence and dominance of American bikes over their Japanese counterparts. Yikes.
Oof.
Similar designs to a B-29 bomber and tank symbols resemble a bomber pilot's flight wings.
Wow.
Yikes.
Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna just gloss over that and just say it's a pretty cool looking bike.
Yeah, it's a cool looking bike, and it has the cool sounds. That
low rumble is so great.
Mm-hmm. This movie is just a masterpiece of sound design, as well as what we're seeing as top-notch action and stunts and stunt driving.
All right. Should we get to the second part here?
I think that's it. Go for it. Second part.
All right, second part. Here's where we really ramp things up. Jon takes the side road, which leads him down into the LA River flood control channel. He slows down and stops, looking behind him. We hear a screech as Jon looks up at the overpass, just as the semi-truck breaks through the wall and crashes down onto the channel bed. It smashes and sparks, but keeps on coming after Jon. The truck and Jon are now in a high-speed pursuit down the channel. The T-800 is now riding his motorcycle above the channel. The channel narrows as the truck scrapes the walls and takes out rusted cars. The T-800 shoots the lock off a fence to keep tracking the chase. He starts firing his sawed-off shotgun at the semi-truck, reloading by spinning the gun like a boss.
Like a boss.
He shoots another lock to stay in pursuit. The semi's top then rips off under a low overpass, and the T-1000 punches the remaining windshield out of the way. The truck is now hitting the rear of Jon's dirt bike.
Whew. Terrifying stuff. I mean, this is where those allusions to Duel and Overdrive? Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah.
Come into play for sure with the truck just towering over the pursuee. But the difference here is like the people in those other movies usually like in other vehicles or they're in a building. In this case, this is a guy on a dirt bike. This is terrifying. This is like an ant to that humongous truck. I love that imagery, the juxtaposition of those two vehicles. Clearly, like one is more powerful than the other one.
You remember how jaw-dropping that was when you first saw it? When you see the truck blast through the overpass wall and come flying down into the canal.
That is iconic.
Yeah, just one of the great action movie stunts. Apparently that was done practically. They actually sent a truck down over the edge.
Oh, of course.
Why not? And and when it landed, it actually broke the axle, and you see it when it lands. The wheels go all wonky, and the whole truck like zooms off to the driver's right, like towards the wall. And James Cameron was like, "Well, that was a good take, though. We're just going to use it." And so, in following up on that scene, they just sort of positioned the truck up on that wall and just brought it back to the middle to make it all look seamless. But yeah, they destroyed a truck in the process and had to start with a new one on that.
Oh, of course. And then they further destroyed a little bit later.
Yes.
But did that come up at all yet? Or is that in the third? No, I think it's in this
when
part.
The top gets ripped off.
Yeah.
That's here. Yeah.
The top is ripped off because while they're filming, at least in the script, they didn't plan on the top coming off. But I believe the low enough overpass totally gave them the excuse just to rip it off, which is adding even more, of course, to this chase, to like the destructiveness and like the drive of the T-1000 not going to stop until John Connor is dead. He's going to take any means necessary.
Yeah, apparently they had to score the top of the truck, and they actually ran it into the overpass to like actually shear it off. But again, like Cameron here is making, lemonade out of lemons, right? They realize that's the case. How can we use this? They shear off the top. That becomes kind of an iconic part of this chase. And it turns into a great, like, quick gag because for a moment they shoot the truck and you can't see the T-1000 driving. And we have that great moment where he pops back up, right? And smashes the windshield out of his way and just keeps on driving with his emotionless expression, which is just so perfect. Yeah.
He's all business. It is one of my favorite little tiny moments of this scene where, he's almost like a toddler just popping that window off, just kind of like being annoyed at something, but not breaking the face as toddlers do sometimes, or just kind of like emotionlessly break a toy or something like that. And like, hey, and it's just, I love that little pop off of the windshield. That
He's
was
just
one of
channeling every father driving his family on a road trip.
I'll punch this windshield out.
I will punch this windshield out right now.
Yeah, I remember Dad doing that. Dad, no. Just gonna have to pick it up later. That is one of the goofs I was reading about was that when the truck first lands off of the overpass, the windshield clearly comes off, but then in the most recent special edition, whatever, Blu-ray, 4K, I don't know.
Yeah.
But when it does crash down in that latest edition, the windshield doesn't pop out, and I watched that comparison video, is very clear that those are still intact because you see them. Well, because they crack, obviously, when the top comes off, and then the T-1000 has to pop the windshields off by hand.
Right.
So that wouldn't really work if they fell off when they hit the ground here. But it's so minor. It's not what you're paying attention to. But I guess James Cameron wanted in for continuity's
sake. Yeah, I had never noticed that until like researching this. Yeah, I'd never ever noticed. So we get the sheared off top, and now they're zooming down the LA River, if you will. I love the way Cameron just kind of sets all our characters here. Like, there's never a moment in this scene where you don't know where anybody is. Right. I think there's so many action movies these days. You know, I'm thinking of like Michael Bay movies where the action gets so frenetic that it's hard to keep track of what's going on, who is where, and like what the geography of the scene is. But he takes the deliberate amount of time here to just show Arnold riding that motorcycle along. And it's like, okay, here's where he is. Here's what they're doing. And, you know, we get the great shot of him shooting the fence a couple times, but it just still really establishes that he's right here. They're down here. He's in pursuit. And you always know where all three players are at all times. And that sounds simple, but it's not like that. You have to be very like deliberate about doing that to make the storytelling make sense. And, I love that addition. And of course, like, we can't just have Arnold like driving along and jumping down into the river. He's got to pull out his shotgun and shoot his way through the streets, you know? I mean, how iconic is that gun flip?
It is so iconic. It is used quite a few times in this sequence. I think it's only in this sequence too, right? I don't think that's used again. Does he use a shotgun? He does use a shotgun in the hallway of the Galleria, but I don't think he's doing the twirl. And later on, Sarah Connor uses a different shotgun in the steel mill, but that is not, she's not spinning that. That's just a one-handed, it's another badass way to reload. And that's her cocking the entire thing one-handed.
One-handed, yeah.
Oh my God. She's a Terminator. But yeah, this is another iconic, just imagery from this movie. And what it says is that what I have, it's on the trivia for Amazon too. Look at that. It says the T-800's shotgun has an extra large finger loop in its lever to make it easier to cycle the action by twirling. This trick was performed by John Wayne in several of his westerns, including True Grit, Stagecoach, and El Dorado.
Oh, so it was not the very first time.
No.
That's cool. So they had to fashion a larger grip. And I guess Arnold had to practice using it a bunch of times till he could get that down. But it works so well, and he makes it look so easy, right? That you believe it, that like, oh, of course this robot from the future can just flip the shotgun around and fire again. I mean, why not?
So seamless. I think
seamless.
A piece of trivia I was reading too was that the metal on the trigger guard would like tear away at his skin, so he was left with quite a bad ripped up finger or two from spinning it.
I feel like I also read that he actually accidentally whacked Edward Furlong in the head with it.
yes, at one point you can see it right at the very end of this scene where they're sitting on the dirt bike and he tucks the shotgun back away and it goes right over John's head and kind of brushes his hair a little bit.
Right. Let's see. Do we have other details about this section?
I can give a little bit of location details.
Oh, sure.
This is from movielocations.com.
Yeah, so we are actually in the LA River here, right?
Yeah, this is a flood control channel like I put in the notes and like you read off earlier. But it says, escaping on his dirt bike, Connor tears into one of LA's concrete flood control channels back in the San Fernando Valley. The spillway used is Bull Creek, which leads down to the Sepulveda flood control area. In drier times, the Balboa and the Encino golf courses. And I did a quick Google map of this and just kind of scrolled south on the Bull Creek area. I put the Google Maps snapshot at the end of the notes there. And yeah, it just kind of drains out into a larger drainage area before it flows into the larger LA River. But it's just another iconic piece of scenery, piece of what would you say, just location that you would see and you instantly know where it is. You know, it's in Terminator 2.
Right.
It says it's also in Grease and Repo Man.
Bull Creek Spillway, San Fernando Valley. What do you think of when we're standing here today?
This is where my semi-truck goes right through the wall,
Right.
into the wash,
Right.
in the pursuit of John Connor, who we saw the house earlier.
Right.
Arnold's got the Harley. He's coming around here.
He's
he
coming
comes
right
through.
here.
He comes right through here.
Yep.
Interesting to think about. You know, it's 30 years ago. The pursuit of the T-1000, and then how that related to the vehicle.
Yeah.
And how do we continue to convey that forward move it going on? That was what I was preoccupied with. How do I make that in every frame look like I'm in pursuit of this being, even if I'm just sitting in a truck?
Yeah,
For
that makes sense.
scenes. Yeah. I also have a big connection from playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you played that a lot, but there's a lot of LA imagery, and that's one of the principal locations where you're doing a lot of races, but also some missions is in those flood control channels.
Yeah, I do remember that. Played that years ago, but I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, the only other thing I had was that I thought was interesting was there's several shots where Arnold he's actually controlling the Harley Davidson. I mean, they used a stunt double for some stuff, which we'll talk about in a moment when we get to the third section. But I guess when Arnold was controlling the bike, they, you know, especially the scene where he pulls out from the Galleria and kind of gets into the highway to start following, he could only go so fast on that bike with him on it and just with how tight the turn was. And so James Cameron used a technique that what did he call it? Undercranking.
We've all used that technique.
Yeah, I undercranked right before we started recording. Which essentially means that they film it with a slower frame rate than the normal 24 frames a second, and then in post-production they speed that up, or when they put it back to its normal frame rate, it looks normal, but it speeds up Arnold's movement, so it makes him look like he's taking that turn much, much faster. And I guess they use this same technique several times throughout the movie in a lot of the fight scenes to kind of give the punches and the fight choreography a little more punch. And so I thought that was kind of a cool sort of behind the scenes trick. I love how this movie is known for its amazing special effects. And particularly the groundbreaking CGI that was used at the time. But Cameron also has an incredible amount of practical effects in this movie. And he uses CGI really exclusively for the T-1000, and all the other chase scenes, all the location stuff, like that's all done practically. That's all done real. And it's this really beautiful kind of marrying of these two things, the CGI special effects and then your practical special effects. And it just works so well together.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I was watching it again all the way through and kind of looking for those visual effects pieces, but just also really appreciating how much goes into the practical effects and like the real guns being fired and the real trucks being crashed,
right?
The real helicopters being flown under the bridges at the end.
Ridiculous. That's unbelievable.
Oh my God. Like the stunt piloting alone is just amazing. And Cameron is the one filming, some of the more dangerous things.
Yeah.
That's how Cameron rolls. Literally, he puts himself in those situations. I think what I hear is that he's not asking actors to do something he wouldn't do. Like he would absolutely go underwater. He would go, under a bridge right next to a helicopter.
That is a stunt that we will literally never see executed for a movie ever again. Like there's no way they would ever do that now. Like it would all be CGI'd. It would all be green screened or whatever done in a studio. We'll never ever see that again. And I don't know. I am, every time I see that helicopter go under the bridge, my heart skips a beat, and I cannot believe they actually pulled that off. That is unfathomable.
When I was watching that one, I thought, like, wait, did they really just fly a helicopter under like a very tight fitting bridge? This is no like humongous crazy Golden Gate style bridge. This is like an overpass over a highway.
It's absolutely insane. It's so crazy,
just crazy for a stunt. And it's not even that impactful to the chase, I would argue, but just visually, and if you're aware of those kinds of things, like a lot of movie goers now are. Yeah, it is jaw dropping.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. It's one of the standout stunts that they kind of the arrogance and the audacity they had to do that is pretty unbelievable. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on the helicopter.
Oh yeah,
going under the bridge. Yeah.
Well, that's the choice for my scene for next time.
Next on our podcast, Terminator 2.
This is all we talk about.
This is all we do.
2, scene by scene.
Yeah. After that, I'll choose the shootout at Skynet.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, old painless. Oh man,
I know.
Too many good scenes.
Shall we get to the conclusion of our 3-act chase scene story?
Yeah, let's undercrank this.
Let's undercrank it. All right. Part 3. The T-800 launches his motorcycle from above the channel down onto the channel. The T-1000 looks back to see Arnold and starts to swerve to block the T-800 from Jon. The T-800 narrowly passes on the right and then scoops Jon up off of his dirt bike and sits him down in front of him on his own bike as we see the dirt bike crushed by the semi-truck wheels. The T-800 spin reloads the shotgun and shoots the semi-truck's front tire, causing the T-1000 to lose control of the truck. The T-1000's truck crashes into an overpass and explodes as the T-800 and Jon ride away. They stop to look back at the flames, with the T-800 reloading and pointing the gun at the fire, only to see a flaming tire roll out. They ride away, and soon after, the liquid metal form of the T-1000 walks out of the fire, reskins itself with the Robert Patrick exterior, and walks away. Great conclusion to this chase, and we should start by talking about that motorcycle jump. Again, one of the iconic moments in this film, but also one of the only moments that I'm slightly taken out of the film. Even when I was 11 years old watching that, I was like...
Even when you're 11? See, I wasn't noticing this until I was watching it this time around, because I haven't watched the movie, honestly, to be frank, that many times over the years. It's, bits and pieces here and there, but really never full the way, all the way through since probably the 90s.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But yeah, I noticed it right away. Jean-Claude on the bike.
Yeah, it's I have always noticed that, and every time they do that motorcycle jump, I can't help but look at the guy's face and be like, "That's not Arnold."
Right.
Apparently, it's a guy wearing an Arnold mask, which is why it looks kind of funky.
It looks a little creepy.
Yeah. But that aside, that motorcycle jump is fantastic.
What was it like working with Arnold and standing in for him?
It was busy, for one. Like on Terminator 2, we had 3 separate units running.
My favorite movie of all time, by the way.
Yeah, and my bike jump up there, which put me in the Hollywood Stuntmen's Hall of Fame. It was really busy. I mean, I had days where, you'd wake up and you'd be hurting and you'd have to go back to work, wake up peeing blood and still have to go back to work.
Oh, gosh.
And that is also not CGI. That was actually done, but they put the bike on wires with a crane to lessen the impact of the bike as it hit the ground.
Can you see the wires? I can never see the wires when I hear about them in these kind of scenes. I can see a little wire on Jon's backpack when Arnold picks him up.
So Cameron talks about this. This was the very first digital removal of wires ever in a film.
Wow.
And so they CGI'd essentially out the wires. It was the first time that was ever done. Now that's commonplace, but that was the first time. And I actually found a great YouTube video that was a motorcycle stunt guy that was watching different movies with motorcycle stunts and like commenting on how they probably did it or just sort of his take on it. And he talked about the T2 motorcycle jump. And he was saying like they would have had to use wires here because in reality, if you were to jump, if someone the size of Arnold was on that bike and you were to jump it that far, immediately when it landed, the tires would fly off, the engine would hit the concrete, and you'd probably break both of your ankles and probably your back.
Oh, man. Yeah, I just used the wires and a stunt guy.
Right. But
that stunt guy is Peter Kent. He was the stunt guy for Arnold in Predator. But the mask is just weird. It is one of the changes Cameron made in the special edition is they basically CG'd to the best of their ability Arnold's face onto it. So the hair is a lot shorter, the head is a lot squarer, and it looks a lot more like Arnold in this scene and in a couple other scenes in this river chase scene where they replaced the Arnold mask with a CGI Arnold mask, essentially.
I was the first guy ever in the industry to wear basically a Mission Impossible mask on my face. I can tell you it was extremely uncomfortable. I wore it sometimes 16 hours a day, glued to your face, every day, glued to your face.
But anyhow, that's a great jump, and that brings all three of our characters down into the canal. And every single time I watch this, I still, again, my heart kind of skips a beat when Arnold pulls forward to get past the semi-truck on the right side. It so looks like he's going to get smashed.
Yeah.
And then the camera flips to the front side and we see him just squeak by. That's such a good, just quick moment of tension. I love that so much.
Yeah, it does not look like there's enough room for him to fit over there. Not at all. But yeah, his stunt double, Arnold pulls up next to John Connor, scoops him off the bike. The bike goes right under the wheels, just shows you how matchstick of a bike or how matchstick of a vehicle that is compared to the truck. The truck just eats it up.
Just destroys it,
Yeah, and then Arnold just kind of makes this a short chase. He fires one round, or I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. He fires one bunch of buckshot, whatever a shotgun fires. He shoots at one. He shoots at once, and the chase is essentially over.
He sharts on the truck.
I shotted.
I'm so sorry. I shot it on your truck.
But he did more firing of this shotgun when he was basically opening up the fence. He opens up a couple fences with the shotgun.
Yeah, he sharts on the fence. Yeah,
sharts on the fence, shot on the fence, shot on your truck. The shark your tires out.
Yeah, he went to a taco truck and just shotted. I'm in LA. They have the best tacos.
Get to the taco truck.
I'm so sorry, James Cameron. I just keep shotting.
Not presume his revenge. But the chase is over a lot more quickly than I remember it being when I was watching this scene when you first talked about it. Arnold scoops John up, shoots a tire, sharts the tire, the truck crashes, and that's it. I somehow remembered in my mind, right, as a kid watching this, this epic showdown between Arnold on the bike and T-1000 in the truck, Arnold just consistently shooting with John in the front. But that's not the case. It is a one and done. He shoots the tire out, and I think that's quite a realistic shot there. You shoot the tire out of this humongous truck, and it's not going to be able to navigate. It's not going to be able to drive effectively. It's going to just crash. You're going to lose control.
Yeah, I love the whole way that scene comes to an end. I agree with you. In my mind, it's much longer. This whole chase scene in my mind is much longer. When you break it down, it's only 5 minutes or so.
5 minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because in my mind, it's such this big, magnificent piece of this movie, and it's 5 minutes out of almost 3 hours. But that sequence that ends the chase is so well done. You believe every single thing that happens. Right. And again, it's this over the top chase sequence with over the top characters and vehicles, but he shoots out the tire. It's totally believable that tire goes, blowing off. the truck loses control and he hits that center divider, which is awesome. And then even after that, you know, when the truck explodes, we see so many times in movies like a car will just get shot or like run into a wall and just inexplicably explode, right? But here Cameron makes the choice to like show us, okay, here's the gas tank leaking and the little wire from the battery or whatever is dangling, and it sparks that gasoline and the whole thing goes up in flames, and the whole thing is completely fluid and believable in the sequence of events. And it's a kind of a perfect way to end. And we get that great moment where they look back and it's on fire, and then they leave, and then the T-1000 walks out, just like in Terminator 1 when we see the T-800 in his metal form walk out of that burning, was it a burning truck or a burning warehouse or whatever?
Oh, yeah. Man, I think it was a burning fuel truck.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Where it just, he pops up and they start screaming.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Right. The surprise, like the movie's not over yet.
Yeah.
But I think that was deliberate. I think that's a callback to the first movie, where in the first movie we had to wait the entire time to see the Terminator in his metal form, and he walks out of the fire like that. And in the first chase sequence, in the first half hour of the film, we get that same scene, and we can see what this Terminator looks like in his metal form before continuing the movie. I think that's a really cool, just kind of a cool way to keep things going.
Or to his credit, James Cameron lets the scene breathe before even the T-1000 comes out of the flames in his mimetic alloy glory. You're just waiting. You're waiting. It's good 5 or 6 seconds that pass before he emerges, because you yourself, right? We as an audience, we haven't seen the T-1000 like face any kind of battle damage like this before. And like you were saying, referring to the first Terminator, is like, skin is all burnt off and his clothes are all gone. It's just machine after he emerges from the fire. And the T-1000, totally different. T-1000 pops out with the silver skin and then just reskins back to what he was before. It's a good way to kind of shock the audience and make them realize this isn't the same kind of Terminator. This isn't your dad's Terminator.
This is not your dad's Terminator.
Not your dad's Terminator.
Yeah, well, and it's also terrifying, right? You're like, what could ever beat this thing? Right? Mm-hmm. And that's how they start this. Like, okay, this machine's power is almost unstoppable. And we've got, 2 hours of the movie left.
Yeah.
How are they going to defeat this thing? Like, what are they going to do? And it really, it's a action sequence, because action movies need action sequences. But I think it establishes a lot of the rules. It establishes kind of what our characters can do, what the Terminators are capable of, what their limitations are. And I love this as sort of the cap on the first act of the movie that sends us off into the next section. Yeah, because after this we have a nice breath as John Connor catches up with what the deal is with the T-800. Yep. It's not a huge surprise, because his mom had been telling him all about the Terminators and his role in the future, during his whole upbringing. From there, they're off to free Sarah Connor. And that's where like the adventure of the three really begins. Yeah. And the rest is history. Yeah. That was really great. I had fun going through that. Did you have any other notes to chime in on about the chase sequence? A couple of things. Like, you don't look back at explosions. They check that off the box. Even the T-1000, like all three of them just walk away from the explosion. They look back on it just to make sure the T-1000 is not pursuing them, not because it's like, you have to look at the explosion. And also the rolling tire on fire. I believe that is a trope. I believe you do see that like in other movies, like when a wagon explodes, like in a Western, you'd see the wheel just kind of like rolling past, sometimes on fire, sometimes not. Nothing's coming to mind, but I know that's a trope that sometimes people maybe envision happening a lot more than it actually does. But having it here is just another homage in my mind to like a great Western chase, like as if a bunch of people on horseback were pursuing other people on horseback. Yeah, I can't picture a specific movie, but I can just like see that in other films in my head. I think you're right. That is a kind of a classic way to finish that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you have nothing else to add here, we can kind of move along. Did you have anything else to add?
No, I think that is it for me. I'm good talking about the scene. That was fun. That was cool to break down a scene. It's kind of like old hat for us. I'll be honest. Like
I know, it's fun.
Yeah, it's like just a 5-minute scene instead of a 1-minute scene. This is nice. I like this. Talking about everything from open to shut in terms of opening the scene and then closing out the scene.
Yeah, so we're this is our first episode. We're making things up a little bit as we go along here, but we can. I think we'd be remiss not to talk about the era of movies here in 1991. So this was the highest grossing film of 1991. On a budget of a little over $100 million, the most expensive movie ever made at the time, but grossed almost $520 million.
Yeah.
So I think that was a success.
Yeah. And it sets the standard for action movies for years to come, even though in my mind, James Cameron doesn't dip into the well enough after that for having created such an awesome action masterpiece. He just doesn't really follow it up that much with, the next big action piece. I would say True Lies is all well and good and has some incredible shots. Yeah. You talk about practical effects, blowing up the causeway,
that's incredible.
The Keys Highway or whatever. Like that is amazing and noteworthy. It's just not as much of the action, I would say, drama spectacle that Terminator 2 is.
Man, how cool would it have been to get a James Cameron Terminator 3?
Whew.
Oh boy,
that would have been cool.
We can only wonder.
Yeah.
Let's see. Highest grossing films of 1991. Number 2 was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 was Beauty and the Beast. Hook, The Silence of the Lambs, JFK, The Addams Family, Cape Fear, Hot Shots, that surprises me, and City Slickers.
It's kind of like a scary kind of top 10. I mean, you have Silence of the Lambs, you have JFK, you have Cape Fear.
Yeah, that's true.
City Slickers, like all scary movies, right? Like designed to give you the chills.
That was a big movie. You forget how popular City Slickers was. I did not realize that Hot Shots was such a success.
Yeah,
I've always thought that movie was funny, but like in the realm of like Naked Gun movies and whatnot, I had no idea it was the 9th highest grossing film of 1991. Shocking.
Yeah, that had to give way to like a lot of other parody movies, because even though like Naked Gun was they released their second Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear that year. That was just kind of like, spoofing cop movies and shows from the 70s and 80s, whereas Hot Shots was very much parodying Top Gun. Like it had Top Gun in its sights as the parody. And so like, I think a lot of other parody movies have come from that. Things like Scary Movies.
That's true. It was really parodying kind of current films in the public's zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Other notables from 91, anything stand out to you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about it before, but the first R-rated movie I had seen was The Hard Way. Just released just a few months before this movie, Terminator 2. There's also, I'm just going to kind of go through Last Boy Scout, screenplay by Shane Black. Can't help but
there you go.
Talk about that. Ernest Scared Stupid, which as a kid was sneaky scary for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The troll shrinking down kids into like little dolls. Yikes.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
Double Impact with their boy JCVD.
Oh, hell yeah.
TMNT 2, Secret of the Ooze. That's the Vanilla Ice one where...
Go Ninja, go Ninja.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
The perimeter's quiet.
Yeah, a little too quiet.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah, a little too easy. Yeah.
Look, it's Raph.
Yeah, A little too Raph. You guys, knock it off.
Brother.
Keep your eyes peeled.
Exactly. Vanilla Ice was like pretty much on the way out by 1991.
Yeah, that was his last hurrah.
Anything else?
Point Break is in there. Point Break.
Yeah, Point Break is in there. Bill and Ted 2, so good year for Keanu.
Yeah. A couple of horror movies that stand out to me. You got People Under the Stairs.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, what was the other one I saw? Oh, Freddy's Dead. Critters 3. Oh, yeah, we do have some sequels here. We have some sequels. We got American Ninja 4, Naked Gun 2.5, Critters 3, Child's Play 3, Bill and Ted 2, and Highlander 2.
Oh, so, okay, I can remember. Sorry, I totally meant to say this way back when in the third part of our scene there.
Yeah.
But our visual effects supervisor is Dennis Murin, or Mirren, as I hear it pronounced. Just became most famous, of course, for the visual effects on the Star Wars movies. We're talking about the original trilogy and then 2 of the prequels and Force Awakens. But you talk about that early career with the first trilogy of Star Wars movies, The Temple of Doom, E.T., Willow, Abyss, Ghostbusters 2, Inner Space, Jurassic Park, Twister, AI, later on, then Hulk and the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, Super 8. The guy won 9 Oscars for his effects work in movies. Like this is one of your visual effects pillars, one of the people in charge of, T-1000, which obviously we know the technology came from the Abyss, testing that out, basically that kind of liquid technology there. But then, just the guy who's been around forever making these special effects movies that like we all know and love. Like we can point to different effects in these movies and say, oh yeah, like the same guy made all these different effects. So seeing the T-1000 pop up out of the flames basically reminded me of that moment, or of that figure, Dennis Murin.
The Oscar goes to Dennis Murin, Stan Winston, Gene Warren Jr., and Robert Skotak. Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Nice, yeah. And I also noticed that the cinematographer on this was Adam Greenberg. Mm-hmm. And he has quite the resume as well.
Some Cannon films.
Some Cannon films. That's I was going to say. Like one of his earliest credits is Lemon Popsicle, which is an Israeli teen sex comedy that was remade for Cannon Films once Golan and Globus bought Cannon and retitled The Last American Virgin. Mm-hmm. That's crazy to me that he did Lemon Popsicle and Terminator 2. That is wild. But he has quite a resume of action films and movies throughout the 80s and 90s that you would recognize.
Don't miss the year's most entertaining and appealing film, Lemon Popsicle, Certificate X.
And something we didn't really talk about was the score. So the score of this film was done by Brad Fiedel. And I meant to mention this when we were talking about the scene breakdown, but how like memorable is that score when they're driving around and you get that like ring, like I don't know how to describe it. It's like the sound of like shearing metal or something that he works into that score is during the chase scene. And man, that every time I hear that, the hair on my arms kind of stands up. That is so good.
Yeah, and when both vehicles are jumping down into the river channel, there is this kind of suspension of the music and more of this kind of like just high-pitched, tense, this...
Yeah.
Just again, that kind of high tension, probably representing the high the high elevation from which they're crashing down. But he didn't do a whole lot else besides, I mean, here's the list of notable movies I made. He also did Terminator 1, so there's probably some callbacks to that score that I don't really know that movie's score that well. If I did know it better, I'd make the connections here. But the first Fright Night, and I think the sequel to Fright Night, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Mnemonic, Blue Steel, Striking Distance, and True Lies. And that's kind of it for notable movies for Brad Fiedel.
Interesting. Kind of a varied resume there. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it gives us an iconic score in the Terminator. right? The dun 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 dun
Dun, 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 dun.
dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
And
that's
then, there's all the variations of that song throughout the movie. There's like a heartfelt version towards the end.
right. That's right. Oh my god. All right. Well, I think we've done the scene justice here.
I think we have. I think we've done the T2 River chase scene justice.
Well, that brings us to our next segment, our recurring segment.
Our brand new recurring segment. Is it better than Predator? Mac!
Targets the center of the palapa.
Targets the center of the palapa!
Targets the center of the palapa.
Targets the center of the palapa!
Oh man, we can just keep going.
Anytime. So, John, I'm going to throw it to you. Is it better than Predator?
Terminator
versus
Predator.
Okay, so this is our first version of the recurring segment that we've always done.
And it's a hard one. It's a hard one.
I'm just curious, are you comparing the entire movie or the scene?
I'm going to say the whole movie.
The entire movie comparing Terminator 2.
I know. I won't be mad. Whatever you choose, it's okay.
I like how you preface it because you know how I'm going to answer.
I know.
Like my heart of hearts is always going to pick Predator over most other action movies, other than like maybe a scant few others. But I mean, this is like I don't know how to describe it. It's like words don't do this movie justice. It's just like how big it is, how much of an action epic, movie term that people probably hate hearing, but just the scale of it, even though it's such an intimate chase kind of scale, like this robot is chasing this dude, but it's just much bigger than that. Just the way that James Cameron really, really poured everything into it in terms of the effects, in terms of the explosive stunts and helicopter piloting and gunplay. We didn't even talk about the gunplay that much.
Yeah.
The people in the movie all being trained by this ex-Israeli special forces soldier.
Maybe he worked on Lemon Popsicle.
Here's your lemon popsicle. Just the scale of this movie is just so huge. It's just everything you would want out of a summer blockbuster. It's one of the movies you would point to in Hollywood history as like one of those movies, a capital M movie. It's like, this is why the big screen was invented. So a movie that's made to live up to that big screen status, that really owns it, that's one of your iconic movies, probably makes most people's lists of top movies, if not action movies, of course. Just in its scale, sure, I think it blows away Predator and a lot of things it does in terms of what I was talking about, stunts and action and the practical effects. But to me, Predator with I think the cast of characters is one I like a little bit better than Predators. I know you have, well, who am I going to point out as the cast of characters that I really like here? The T-1000, clearly the baddie, like everybody hates him. Boo, that guy. I think I end up disliking the Predator more as a villain, or liking. What is the word I'm looking for? I end up looking at Predator as more of a sinister villain, even though the T-1000 is
he's a better villain.
Thing. He's a better villain. I'm not saying he's going to win in a fight. No way.
Sure.
I'm going to.
No. That's not the question.
That.
Yeah, that's not the
question. But the fact that the Predator is killing off like all but one of this highly trained special forces crew is quite telling. And the most we see in the T-1000, I made this argument on the other show, is like, he kills the kind of bad guy from Air Force One, the secret bad guy from Air Force One, and Vasquez, or is it Velasquez from Aliens?
Yeah, Vasquez, I think.
And the fat cop security guard in the mental institution, and a truck driver and a police officer. And that's kind of it. So his menace is there. It's just not really exercised to the degree that the Predator's menace and danger is excised.
Is this your long way of saying that the Predator wins?
Oh, no, I would not say Predator wins. I wouldn't say that. Definitely T-1000 wins pretty easily, pretty handily. His whole weapon is basically a body.
No, but I mean the movie. Does Predator win for you?
Oh, yeah, I think Predator wins for me just I also like the jungle setting a little bit more, and I like the fact that there's a kind of a quirky team in the beginning, and I like seeing the quirky team in action and seeing what they do. Unfortunately, before they're all taken out by the predator. And
I'm fully aware that the answer to this question for most movies that you watch with me is going to be Predator, so that's fine. I love Predator, obviously, but this movie just sits too near and dear to my heart. Sure. And my history of movie watching and kind of when it comes down to it is the way I look at it. This is going to be a hard question in general because when you're trying to compare movies, they can sometimes sit in different genres for you in your mind, and it's hard to say that this one's better than this one. It's just that this one is a better type of this movie and this one's a better type of this movie, whatever. But what I kind of boil it down to is if someone were to plop both, Blu-rays in front of me and say, you have to watch one of these right now, I would probably choose T2. So I'm going to have to go Terminator 2 Judgment Day for this one.
It's a tie.
I can respect that. And I think when you mentioned the 2 DVDs in front of you, I
Blu-rays,
tend
John,
to go,
Blu-rays.
Sorry, Blu-rays. Sorry, laser discs. Sorry,
2 laser
VHS,
discs.
Betamax.
2 Betamax tapes.
2 camcorders, and the one was filmed with. I think for me, I also just like the Predator's kind of intimate story more than the Terminator 2's larger scale story, where it's like, well, this is all of humankind. This is, the whole world's history depends on this movie. And granted, one of my favorite movies is Star Wars, and that's all they're doing is battling for the fate of the galaxy. So it's hard for me to really support that argument with that point. But I like that jungle intimate setting and the fact that the stakes aren't unbelievably high for something that takes place on Earth.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Predator is better than Terminator 2. John Zabriskie.
It's a split decision. We'll go with a split decision. How about that?
That's true. Okay.
It's a tie.
There we go.
So now that we have that settled, it is time for a tradition on our show when it's me and you, and that is recommends. We like to close things out by recommending something that we have watched, or a food that we've eaten, or if you're John, maybe some shoes that you wore. So, John, I'm going to throw it to you first. What is your weekly recommend?
Oh my gosh, I've been waiting so long to tell you about this podcast. Yeah, I know. It's like a podcast. No way.
I thought you were going to say this podcast.
I recommend a little podcast called Seen It All with Jeff and Jon. You want a scene? Oh, no. Okay. Oh, man.
Oh, tell me about this podcast. I want to know.
Okay, no, it's a podcast where Halle Kiefer tells Alison Leiby all about a scary movie, really breaks it down beat by beat for her friend who's too scared of movies. I'm stumbling over it right now, but it's a podcast called Ruined with Alison Leiby and Halle Kiefer, and it is delightful. I've listened to a few episodes with my wife. Thank you. And it's just, I forget how I heard of it. I think, if I remember correctly, Halle Kiefer was on an episode of the Canon with Jeff and Frank, and sought out that podcast because honestly, it sounds like you and me. It sounds like you who love scary movies,
right?
About scary movie. To me, that is until we find a scary movie scene you want to talk about, and then I will end up watching the movie front to back. But it's just a delightful podcast. The two hosts have just incredible chemistry with one another, and this is so funny. And at the same time, hey, bonus, I can hear a movie's recap, a scary movie recap without having to watch it.
And this sounds fantastic. I am subscribing immediately. It's
Ruined.
called Ruined. Okay.
Yeah.
Gonna do
You'll
it.
know because it has, as its picture, a giant butcher knife with the cartoon reflections of the hostesses in it.
Oh, awesome. Good recommend. I'm excited. Okay.
Thanks. And I partly blame them for our opening theme song, because theirs is not like a collection or anything like that of movie quotes. It's just a guy and like a kind of, I don't know, kooky instrument just introducing the podcast.
And would you recommend just starting at the beginning and rifling through?
I think so. You know, one of the latest episodes I listened to actually was The Thing.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
So feel free to give
list of movies here. I'm just looking.
Great list of movies. There's, I've seen some of them. I've listened to other podcast reviews or watched the Dead Meat video on some of them.
Yeah.
But there are some I don't know anything about, and I love to hear it. The one I first listened to with Sarah was Cabin Fever. No, it wasn't Cabin Fever. It was...
It's a good one.
God, it was the something. What was it? What? The Lodge. She's yelling. The Lodge.
Oh, shit. I saw that recently. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. Sarah, did you like the podcast? She says, my wife says the same way. She says, yeah, listen, I love the podcast, but totally terrified of the movie. And I would agree. Yeah. Just listen to the recap even. Like, Halle does such a good job. It's like, oh, I'm kind of scared just thinking about it, or really... She says she can't go to Marysville again without thinking of Children of the Corn, because we listened to that episode too.
The Lodge that's a dark one too. That's like a dark, like,
oh yeah, that's just like
movie. That's
who makes these movies, Jeff?
Who watches this shit? Yeah,
who watches this? Boo.
All right, well, I have a good recommend that I've been wanting to tell you about.
Yay! What do you have to recommend?
I watched a movie that popped up on Netflix, and
what?
I know, and it was it's a Spanish film. It was tagged as a thriller, action, horror movie, and I was instantly intrigued. And then when I started it, the tag said rated R for violence, gore, nudity, and smoking. And I was like, this is a movie for me.
And smoking.
It is called Below Zero. And like I said, it's a Spanish film, so you have to read subtitles. But it took me completely by surprise by how good it was. The basic premise is that a couple guards at a prison are moving a group of prisoners to a new location. And so
and everything goes smoothly, right? Nothing goes wrong.
Everything goes smoothly, yeah. And they put all the prisoners into the kind of the armored transport truck, and they get moving. And it is in the dead of winter, extremely cold where they're at. And needless to say, some things go wrong. And I don't want to go beyond that, because if I start talking too much about what happens, I'll spoil the surprises that are in the movie. But needless to say, it was really, really good. The acting and the performances was fantastic. The action sequences and effects and whatnot were really well done. And the story circles around and has this really great payoff at the very end. I can't recommend it enough. I'm shocked that more people aren't talking about it, but it was really, really good. It's called Below Zero. It's on Netflix, and if you enjoy that sort of thing, I highly recommend you check it out.
Huh. How's the smoking in the movie?
Copious amounts of smoking.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
and there's some chase scenes.
Yeah, not enough sharding, but plenty of smoking.
Oh man, well thanks for the recommend. I'm glad we were both excited to recommend things to each other. I'll have to check out Below Zero.
Yeah, it's really good. I think you will like it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you'll like it. All right. Well, I think that's going to start to wrap things up here, but we cannot end the podcast without doing something very, very important. Each week we will reveal what the next scene is going to be. And the fun part of this is I have no idea what Jon is going to pick. So I picked the first movie, which was Terminator 2 and the specific LA River chase scene. And now it is Jon's turn to choose a film and a specific scene. And I have no idea what he's going to choose.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you for that build-up. Wow, I feel a lot of pressure. You're going to find this out too, that when it's your turn, you're going to probably have 100 things you want to pick. And that you really don't want to make a bad episode out of. You want to do the other side proud, you know?
I know.
And I was thinking of some other movies, some other scenes, like some of my favorite movies. And I thought, no, that's too easy. That's it's cherry picking. I know too much about those. I need to find like kind of like a cult favorite in my mind, and I look no further than specifically the battle royale scene between the Chang Sing and the Wing Kong, when the Chang Sing, accompanied by Wang and Jack and Egg Shen, come to interrupt the wedding of Lo Pan and the green-eyed girls. Green eyes.
Yes.
It's just an incredible scene with so much going on, so much action. You have magic. You have like practical sword fights. You have Jack Burton, Kurt Russell, like doing his darnest to be the likable kind of non-hero.
This is fantastic. I am so excited.
I'm sorry, from Big Trouble in Little China.
There you go. All right. Oh, great choice. I am stoked. I was fully expecting some nerdy scene from Star Wars somewhere.
That was on the table, but no.
I'm sure it'll come up. We got lots of episodes we can do. But that is great. And you know what? I haven't watched Big Trouble in Little China in its entirety, probably in about... I remember watching it when my daughter was an infant, like in the middle of the night when I was like, when she was awake and I was giving my wife a break, and but that was probably 6-7 years ago. So it's time for a rewatch, because that was also at like 2 a.m. and I was half asleep. So I am stoked. Great choice. This will be great. I can't wait.
Thanks. Yeah, and like just another favorite of ours, of course, John Carpenter.
Yes,
we could go on and on about him. Kurt Russell, of course,
yes.
Favorite. Kim Cattrall, James Hong. Al Leong and Gerald Okamura. I don't remember if they both meet their demise during the Battle Royale, if that's earlier, but I believe they are in there as a couple of the bad guys who you just see in every single movie.
Yeah. Raiden.
Yeah, the Three Storms. Yeah.
Three Storms. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact names. I think it's just like really, here it is, Thunder, Rain, and Lightning.
Oh,
Lightning.
Very original.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. Okay, good choice. I'm excited. That's going to be super, super fun.
Yeah, no, this has been a fun idea that you've rolled out of the old Jeff Glover brain. So I appreciate that. The whole breakdown of scene for an episode of this show.
Yeah,
seen it all with Jeff and Jon.
Well, I appreciate you just going along with it, and I think this is going to be really fun. And I hope all you listeners out there enjoy it. And we will be back next time talking about Big Trouble in Little China.
Should we talk about where you can find you, perhaps, and then the show?
Yeah, sure. So, as always, you can find me, Jeff Glover. I'm on the Twitter. My name is Carl_Hungus314. Come follow me there.
My name is Carl. Ich bin expert.
How about you, John?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because we're shifting podcasts. I am changing all of the contact information, so you can find us on Twitter. It's at @SeenItAll_. Sorry about that, but it's at, and then scene as in SCENEITALL_. If you just search Seen It All with Jeff, and then you start to type my name, John, then it'll pop up. You'll see our cool little logo. It should be the same as the podcast logo. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but all the same, I'll have accounts up to post episode announcements and links. On Facebook, it'll just be the name of the podcast, Seen It All with Jeff and Jon, and I'll make sure that's open and people can post ideas and bounce around other ideas.
Awesome.
And we have an email address. We are seenitallpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that scene is SCENE, and that's seenitallpodcast@gmail.com. Send in your questions, your comments, your favorite parts of movies, or maybe of T2, or whether Predator or Terminator 2 is the better movie.
All right. And I think that's going to do it for us. I have been Jeff Glover.
And I have been John Zabriskie.
And we have seen it all.
Yeah, we don't have a sign out yet.
We don't have a sign off.
And we can say for this scene, yeah, we've seen it all.
Yeah. Stick around.
Stick around.
Hey. Stick around.
Stick around.
You wanna see, yeah, you wanna see, like when the Xenomorph took out Harry Dean. You wanna see, yeah, you wanna see, like when Bobby D says, you're talking to me. Seen it all with Jeff and Jon.